Let me share with you about my experience of coming to America. I was seen off at the Karachi airport by my father, my mother, my friends, and family friends, sometimes in late December 1960. My first stop was in Cairo. This was my first overseas visit anywhere, and it was an eye-opening one. I stayed in a middle-class hotel on airline expense, but the highlight was to visit pyramids. I got on a camel and went around and tried to climb the pyramid. The next stop was London, where I was in a small hotel called Shaftesbury Hotel, and did some winter clothes shopping, got a robe for myself, winter robe. And then on afternoon of December 31, 1960, I arrived in New York. I was put up in a hotel near the airport, since next morning I was to fly to my destination, which was Fort Wayne, Indiana, home of Indiana Technical College. Of course, I had heard of New Year's Eve, and my father had told me more about the New Year Eve parties. I had brought with myself a sherwani, which is a long Pakistani jacket, sort of part of national dress. I got dressed, put on that sherwani and Pakistani cap that we called Jinnah cap, and came down. This was still a period when people had some curiosity about foreign visitors and foreign students. So I got a polite reception and sat by myself and had good dinner at the airline expense and had fun. Time came to tip, and my father had told me that one must tip generously. And my father, who had gotten 40,000 rupee loan, which was like about $8,000 at that time, and he had given me about $600 in cash. And I had a wad of notes in pocket. When I took them out to tip the waiter, for the first time I realized that all the notes look alike. They all are green. They all are same size. Whereas in Pakistan, as in most other countries, different denominations are different colors and often of different sizes. So I took out a note. I think it was $5 note, whereas I meant it to be a $1 note, which was a big money for me at that time. But I think it must have been a generous tip, because the waiter was reasonably pleased about that. Next morning, I got on a plane again to adventure in real America, what was going to be my home for so many years. Initially, it was supposed to be my home only for 27 months. I was supposed to get a degree in aeronautical engineering in 27 months. Well, got there. I somehow expected that there will be someone from university who will meet me at the airport and guide me. But of course, there was none. So I got a cab, asked them to go to Indiana Technical College. They said, where in the college? I told them that I'm a new student. That's all I knew. and taxi started driving. There was a very masculine looking female taxi driver, which was a new thing to me. And then I started hearing sounds from the dashboard of the car. And of course, that was the car radio. I mean, it was the mobile radio that taxi cab has to communicate with its own home base. And of course, that was something new. I was startled when I heard those sounds. Then taxi got to the college. It was not very big. And I said, well, I'm going to live here to take me to the hostel. Of course, when we got there, everything was closed. I had forgotten that it's January 1, and everything is closed on New Year's Day. So there was nobody in the hostel. Everything was locked up. So here was my first decision. He asked me where to go. I said, I don't know. And then I asked him to take me to some cheap place where I could stay, and he brought me to YMCA. It was about 1 in the afternoon, and I was hungry, and I asked for a place where I could eat, and I was told that everything is closed. No food, and nothing will be open until tomorrow morning. So my first bad experience, I did not get any food that afternoon or evening. In a way, I also began to feel homesick and sort of cried myself to sleep. Next morning, went to the college. Turned out that it was a technical college. It was not university, which meant very ordinary place, no bigger than the colleges that I have seen in Pakistan. The sad part that I heard that they have practically no standards of admission. Anybody could get admission. So the kids who were there were not the brightest of kids. I met some Indian and maybe 1 or 2 even Pakistani kids there. But these were what I would consider dropouts. People who had not been able to get admission anyplace else, and there they were. Next day, I had to pay my fees for the semester, for the tuition, as well as the dorm, so all my cash reserves were initially exhausted. And then I began to realize over next week or so, the degree from Indiana Technical College had little value even in America, let alone in Pakistan. This would be more like a diploma. And I said, this is not why I left home. So I began to ask around where I could go. I wanted to go to a proper university. And somebody said, why don't you go to University of Illinois? And I could not even pronounce Illinois. I looked at the spelling and I said, oh, Illinois. So one day I got on a bus to Champaign-Urbana to go get admission at University of Illinois. The bus arrived about 2 a.m. in, I don't know, around 10th, 11th of January. There was so much snow on the ground. It was so cold. And of course, at 2 a.m., nothing was open in Urbana-Champaign. So the bus company, Greyhound, dropped me in front of a shop which was supposed to be their office and would have been open in daytime. I came out with a little bag in hand, snow up to my knees, no snowshoes, and nobody to ask anything. So I am walking in the middle of snow, shivering, and fortunately I heard sound of an engine a block or so away. And sure enough, there was a taxi. Taxi driver was sleeping inside. I knocked at his door. He opened it. He said, "Where to?" And I said, "University of Illinois." He said, "Where in University of Illinois?" I said, "I don't know. I'm here for admission." He said, "Well, everything will be closed right now. So what do you want to do?" I said, "Well, take me to the hotel." But then I thought about money. And I said, "How much will it cost?" He said, "Oh, maybe about $30. I said, no, I cannot afford that." So again, where to go? It was already about 3 a.m. So he suggested an all-night coffee shop. So I went to an all-night coffee shop, sat from 3 o'clock until morning, awake, sipping a cup of coffee over and over again. By 7 o'clock, as the light sort of day began to appear, I was ready to go to the university. So I called a cab, and again, where to? I said, "University." And of course, University of Illinois is a huge campus. So finally, he brought me to the administration building. But of course, it was locked. Turned out it was winter holidays. It was, 11th or 12th of January. The college had not restarted. And certainly, administration building was closed. So I am sitting in middle of snow with my little leather suitcase sitting on top of it in front of the administration building with my arms folded. I sat there until about 9 a.m., until the building opened. Go in there, go to the window, and I said, "I want admission." The lady was very polite, and he said, "For when? Next fall or for next year?" I said, "Oh, I want it now, for now." And she said, "Well, that's impossible." She said the college was going to open, semester was going to start in a day or two, and admissions had long been completed. I said, "I got to talk to your boss." Here was basically an 18-year-old Pakistani boy, very skinny, about 105 pounds, unshaved, no sleep last night, so here I am there. So she let me talk to the supervisor. He again explained to me that admission at the last minute in University of Illinois was not possible. But I said, "I have no choice. I'm in a third-rate technical college. My money is all gone. If I stay there a year or until September, I will have no resources to come to University of Illinois. I needed admission now." And believe me, from 9 a.m. until noon, I talked to many people along the chain, and I got the same reply. At 12 o'clock, I was finally ushered into office of Dean of Students. I believe his name was Dean Clark. He had a huge office, nice oriental carpet, and so on. And he said, "Young man, I have heard your story from my staff. There is no way that you can be admitted." And this is when really tears flowed from my eyes. I explained to the dean. I said, I am really a good student. I got first position in whole of my province, and here are my certificates. I was misled into believing that all colleges in America were the same. So I gave up good engineering college where I had been admitted in Pakistan and came here. My father had taken a loan. If I have to stay in Indiana at Fort Wayne for several months or maybe a year, my life will be over. And you know, Dean Clark thought about it and he said, you are admitted. And he said, go back to Fort Wayne, bring your luggage and go file your papers here. I was on top of the world. But now I didn't have any money to pay for the dorm or the tuition fee. So I went back to Fort Wayne that same afternoon, and I had to get money back from Indiana Technical College. And I went to the admissions office and I said, I want my money back. And they said, no way, you have already studied here for 10 days or so. And we don't return money like that. And when I really became very upset and told them this was a question of my life or death, they said, okay, maybe we can return you part of the fees, but we can't return you whole fees. And of course, without whole fees, I could not be admitted in Illinois. Now, here something good had happened which came to my rescue. My father had given me a lot of gifts when I came here to be, he had explained to me that to give gifts is a good thing. And one of the gifts that I had given to was president of the Indiana Technical College. So I showed up at his house that evening. He recognized me, and I told him my whole story. And I showed him the letter of admission from University of Illinois. And I must say, God bless his soul, he was so nice. He said, we are going to refund every penny to you. Got my money, and I came to University of Illinois and got admission. And it was not even the end of that story. Turned out that my money was short by $15. Why? Because someone had stolen $15 from my bank account in Fort Wayne, Indiana, by forging my signature. So even these kind of things were happening even at that time. But Alhamdulillah, thank God, I came to University of Illinois. In the very first semester, I had B+ grades, as a result of which I got tuition waiver. So from that day onward, I did not have to pay tuition fee to University of Illinois because, as long as I could maintain B+ average. May God bless public education in the United States and all over the world. May God bless people of Illinois whose tax dollars were being spent to educate people like me. But now I must tell you that the fact that my father had gotten a loan, that was very high in my head. I knew all the brothers and sisters that we have. I knew the income level of my father. And I said, I just could not bear that burden on my father. So I wanted to minimize it as soon as possible. So I applied for permission to work part-time. And of course, only job I could get was busboy in University of Illinois Union at the Illini Building cafeteria. In those days, it paid $1.10 an hour, of which 95 cents per hour were paid on weekly basis. 15 cents were saved until end of semester to make sure that you do not run away in the middle of the semester. So, my friends, that is basically how I finance my education at University of Illinois from that day forward. By around that time, or after a month or two, I informed my father that I did not need him to use the loan money, and the way it happened, especially from that first summer, was that I again worked whole summer in a student union full time, saved about $500-600, so that was my reserve. Then during the school year, I had the tuition fee off, and I worked 20 hours or so a week, which basically paid for my room and board, and of course, little bit of the reserve. And this is how I financed the education at University of Illinois. We have already talked of my graduation, my job at Motorola. Again, when I had decided during my stay at Motorola that I'm going to go and go to University of Oregon, I know that I started saving $40 a week. Now, at that time, my salary was $140 a week at Motorola. From that, they took some taxes, of course, room, board, transport, and then they had a credit union. I asked them to deduct $40 a week. So in 15 months or so that I was at Motorola, I was able to save about $1,200, part of which on my last day in Chicago, unfortunately, I lost in a card game, which used to be penny any card game we used to play. I lost about $200 there. So basically, I showed up in Oregon with princely sum of about $1,000 in my pocket, and to start my MBA program. Now, before we leave the Illinois period of my life, let me give you a glimpse of what it was like at that time. In 60s, none of this fancy equipment were even invented at that time. These bunch of Indian engineers that I used to play poker with once a week, we will each put in few pennies, and you could win or lose up to $20. We used to talk about what everybody is working on. And one of these young engineers told me that he was working on a machine with which you could turn on TV from your bed. You did not have to get up to go and turn off the TV. So this was the very first remote control TV, remote control that was being worked on. So imagine, this was 1964-65. I was working with people who were inventing the first remote control. At that time, there was no such thing as photocopying. In my engineering courses, we had machine drawing class where we had to trace a drawing of a machine practically every week, and it was such a tedious work. And I used to wish that someone will make a machine so that we could make a photocopy. But of course, the word photocopy had not been invented yet. So it is that sort of period. And I showed up by train in Oregon in September of 1965. Now, those of you who may be familiar with history of Pakistan and India, you will recall that there was a war between India and Pakistan in September 1965. I was, of course, all excited and worried because there were news about bombing and about explosions and all kind of those things. So I wanted to make a statement. The train arrived in Portland, Oregon in the afternoon, and the next train to Eugene was going to be in a couple of hours. So I left my bag at the airport and I was walking around near the station when I saw the newspaper office of, I believe, the Oregonian. And I walked in there. And I told them that I was a Pakistani. I was going to start MBA at University of Oregon, and I wanted to talk to somebody about the Indo-Pak War. They were happy to have a sort of first-hand report. So somebody sat down to talk to me, and I shared them my thought. I said, look, both India and Pakistan, they are having a big war, and this is bound to involve neighbors. Sooner or later, Russia may be involved, but certainly China, who was a good friend of Pakistan, China will intervene on behalf of Pakistan. Okay, interview was over. I got to Oregon, and I had a reasonable reception. I went right away to the hostel. There was room for me, and so on. But along with my room and so on, next morning when I woke up, there were two newspapers which covered the story of my interview in Portland. Oregonian had a big story. Basically, highlight was that China intervention is feared in Indo-Pak War. Then there was a newspaper of the university which had a front page sort of box article which said that this student has just come and he's going to study MBA, but we have not been able to contact him yet, and he has said so and so in Oregon. So I sort of became known at the campus the day I arrived. And I must say, this gave me a great head start. And a lot of people knew me, and so I was a minor celebrity from day one. Now I went to register for my MBA program. I registered for all the courses. This was a well laid out 2-year program. In the first year, the compulsory thing was a 3-quarter sequential course on international business. and this was given by head of International Business Department, Professor Sioma Kagan, and they wouldn't register me without his personal okay. And then there were other optional courses, but I had to have that course in order to be able to finish my MBA on time within the 2-year period. By that time, this in 65, I must say that back home there had been some developments. My father had become ambassador to Saudi Arabia in 1962, 1963. So he was already there. While I had not been able to visit them because ambassador's salary was not so much that he could take care of so many family members, and he could also pay for me to come and visit them. So I had not been there, but I was son of an ambassador. All right. Now I was ushered in front of Professor Kagan to get his personal approval. He looked at me. He was very tall, very distinguished man, silver hair, very impressive personality. I walk in there and he said, yes. I said, sir, I want your approval. He said, you are a new student, aren't you? I said, yes. He said, no, you can't be admitted. You take this course next year. I said, sir, if I take it next year, it will take me a year longer. He said, but son, you are new. You are coming from engineering to business administration, and you just won't be able to cope up. So it's for your own good. Come next year. Take other prerequisites this year. I said, sir, but I need this. I must get it. And then I started to tell them that, yes, I have not studied international business, but I have worked as sales administrator Asia at Motorola Overseas Corporation. Now he became alert. He said, you were working at Motorola? I said, yes. He said, he was a consultant to Motorola. He said, you were at the Overseas Corporation? Yes. He knew Charlie Baswell, my president there. And I also told him about the courses that I had taken at Northwest. He became more interested. He said, sit down. Tell me about your family. I said, sir, my father is ambassador to Saudi Arabia. That made him literally jump out of the seat. That really impressed him. He said, son, you are in. I mean, he used to talk to me like that. He used to call me son. He said, son, you are in. Okay, I was in. His first class, I'm attending his first class, and it was seminar type of course, and there were only 9 or 10 students who were sitting around the table, and Professor Kagan, who was literally God to all of us and to most of the business students he's lecturing. And he made some comment. Of course, he had very wide experience in international field. He was already 60 or so. In those days, he used to get $800 a day consulting fee. When I was making $140 a week at Motorola, he was making $800 a day. So, but he made some adverse comment about developing country. They were lazy people or something, which was probably true comment. But for a young man from Pakistan, very much interested in politics and international affairs, this rubbed me wrong way, and I immediately raised my hand. He looked at me and he said, "Yes." And I said, "Sir, I don't agree with you." There was pin drop silence. And he completely ignored me. He was silent for a minute or so, then he resumed his lecture as if nothing had happened. Sure enough, 15 minutes or so later, there was some comment about Central American countries and how they are banana republics and they rely on one crop, which is banana. And he said, well, how many bananas can people eat after all? The market is limited. Nobody can eat more than one banana a day, so how many bananas can they sell? And of course, my hand went up again. Now this time he was really angry. And he looked at me and said, yes. I said, sir, I love bananas. I can eat 4 bananas a day. So market is not as limited for bananas as you think. This time he was really angry. So he made me explain, and I told him, look, I come from Pakistan. Bananas is a delicacy there, and my God, I could eat 4 bananas right there. And so he laughed this time, and he said, well, I guess monkeys can eat bananas too, and Ali can eat 4 bananas, but believe me, there is limited market. So we laid bygones be bygones until the first hourly exam we had. And when I got my grade back, it was A-. And it also said, talk to me after the class. And when I went and talked to him, he said, Ali, I didn't think you are very bright. You are raising all kinds of stupid questions, and you are interrupting me in class. But you know, you did pretty well on the exam. I think you will do well in the course. And then he said, listen, you know I have a teaching assistant each year. Would you like to be my teaching assistant next year? I said, sir, I would love to. And he said, go get a form and complete the application and bring it to me. I will write a great recommendation for you and you will get the job. All right. I did just that. I went to him and there was a, large space for recommendation, and he started to write. And guess what he wrote? He wrote, I want him. Full stop. He said, go give this in the office. And I did. And surely, a few months later, I got a letter offering me the job. In those days, the salary for teaching assistant was like $1,800 a month, which meant for a 9-month period, so it was $200 a month, plus you got tuition free and so on. This was for about 20 hours of work for the professor. But I was offered $1,200, not $1,800. But I was still so glad, because that year, in this first year of MBA, I was back to washing dishes in cafeteria, because as I said, I had come only with about $1,000. And by the way, University of Oregon was charging only about $40 a quarter from MBA students, because this was a relatively new program, so it was indeed the cheapest university. So, but for food and so on, I needed money. So I thought 1,200 is great. So I went to Professor Kagan, told him that, I said, thank you, sir, I got this. He looked at my letter. He said, my boy, go write them a letter saying you refuse the offer. You reject it. I said, what are you talking about? By the way, we had become very friendly by that time. I used to call him Papa Kagan, and he used to call me son. He said, son, do what I tell you. I said, you'll get me killed. I need the job. He said, I'm telling you, go reject it. Tell them this is not enough money. So I went and wrote a letter refusing the offer. Another 2 months or so of silence, suspense, and then a letter came which basically said, we are pleased to inform you that more funds have become available and you will be getting princely salary of $1,800 a year. So I must tell you that Oregon experience was a wonderful experience. Such a beautiful state, green, mountains. The University of Oregon, I believe to this day, is more of a liberal arts school. So lot of social activities, lot of wonderful evening activities. And again, I must say, what helped me in Oregon was my math background and from engineering. Because with math background, I did very well in finance and accounting and those kind of subjects. Then my Motorola experience, with that I did, of course, did very well in Professor Kagan's class, but in other marketing classes and so on. And it was as much fun or even more fun than I had at Government High School, Larkana. And the result was that I got MBA with straight A's, 26 straight A's, 4.0 average. And Professor Kagan made a motion to the Senate of the university that I should be awarded a special degree of MBA honors, and that is what I got. What a glorious period I had Oregon, and if I was to move from Washington anywhere else in the USA, Oregon will be the place, Eugene will be the town. I would love to be there. Thank you, Oregon. Thank you, Professor Kagan, Professor Anderson, and so many other marvelous teachers and people that I came across.